Greece. It's a national tragedy, really. So what is the EU doing to help out?
Yes, well, this is beyond Greece's capabilities on its own to deal with this, and it did issue an urgent appeal on Monday night to other countries and to the EU for help. The response is being coordinated by the EU's Civil Protection Mechanism, which is a voluntary scheme that was set up back in 2001. Several countries chipped in offering to help. The EU Commission has singled out 3 of them, which it says have offered concrete assistance: Cyprus, Spain and Bulgaria. Cyprus has sent some 60 firefighters and equipment yesterday. Spain's understood to be sending 2 Canadair planes to drop water on the affected areas. This, of course, is accompanied by the inevitable messages of solidarity. The Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, has spoken to the Greek President and the Prime Minister. The EU Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid went to Athens yesterday. He's going to coordinate the EU's assistance. This was the response of a spokesman for the European Commission yesterday.
During these difficult times, we stand side by side with the Greek people and the Greek authorities, and I commend the tireless and courageous efforts of the emergency responders. Everything possible will be done to provide support today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes.
And of course, let's not forget that Greece is not the only country that is suffering from wildfires. Even last week, Sweden had also asked for help. So countries were sending their help to Sweden. So is this testing actually the rescue mechanism of the EU, having several countries needing help, stretching possibly resources?
Yes, absolutely. The scale of this really is putting Europe's response to the test. And there are moves, there have been moves afoot to boost the EU's capability. Remember, we've got fires from the far north of Europe. There's a heat wave even in the Arctic Circle, from the far north right down to southeastern Europe. Sweden, as you mentioned, has been having problems since last week with fires all over the country, and Latvia too. The situation now is that several countries, at least 9 countries, have offered help to Sweden, some 300 firefighters with planes and helicopters as well. Latvia is getting help from the European satellite system Copernicus to help it locate wildfires in remote areas. But the problem with this is that it's all done voluntarily. This scheme dating back to 2001, coordinated then by Brussels. Since last year, the EU Commission has proposed its own disaster force with its own resources. This, of course, remember, we had wildfires spreading across southern Europe from Portugal to Italy, some 200 deaths last year. And the EU says, well, there's not just fires as well. We've also got natural disasters like floods and storms, which are happening with more and more frequency. So Jean-Claude Juncker's proposal was for what's called rescEU, its own civil protection reserve. It wants Europe to offer, the Commission wants Europe to offer more than just condolences and to scramble to respond to these sort of situations. How would it work? Well, the EU would have its own reserve of its own assets, its own equipment, and also it would chip in with funding to help national resources. So it's not a scheme to replace the national effort in these circumstances, but just to help member states deal with disasters. The European Parliament has passed the measure. The European Council of Ministers has also given its support. It's not got unanimous support, but it does seem that a draft law is on its way.